All right. Fantastic. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully I'll be able to see if any other participants come on. It's always a bit tricky trying to run everything at once. So we will see how this goes. Okay. So let's begin. So this is a brief introduction into how to start an organization. My name is Charlotte Burnett. I'm almost received my doctorate in global governance and human security from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. I currently am the founder of Organizing Together, and I also am a proposal coordinator for the Global Ideas program at Michigan State University. And most of my roles are really connecting people together to different organizations and networks to get funding to solve some of the greatest challenges to our local community. So Organizing Together is a hyper-local consultancy organization and research institute that really wants to focus on strengthening all different types of organizations, not usually just nonprofit, but also for-profit, small businesses, and governmental organizations. And we offer services in a progressive price model so that individuals and organizations who normally wouldn't be able to participate in receiving such services can finally afford them. And so for this specific workshop, I usually have a longer one, and hopefully once we get back to meeting in person a little bit more in the fall, I'll go back to teaching in person. But so we're just going to dive kind of into some very basic introductory things. So please, stop me at any moment if you have a question. And please feel free, at the end, there will be a period where you can ask me questions that might be further along in the process, as I think both of you guys have did a lot of really good community work and are probably not at the very beginning of planning your organization. As I said, today we're going to begin with an icebreaker. This is something that I really like to do. It's voluntary, of course, but I would really like to know, and this will help me better understand your organization and your needs. I want to know what inspires you to start your own organization. What value are you bringing to your community and why? So I'm just going to go ahead and go to the first person on my list, Erica.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So at one point in time, I had gone through some things and made some poor choices, and that really changed my life. And when I decided that I wanted to make my life better, the support that I actually needed as someone that was really committed and dedicated to making a change was not available. And eventually my life did spontaneously combust. I lost everything that I had. And as part of like the rebuilding process, I went to many different like organizations, agencies, even churches, individuals, and the sort of support that I really needed, it just wasn't available. So I want to make sure that other people, as many as I can, don't have that experience. So that's what's inspired Jubilee. And also I was homeless at one point in time, and just, people want to tell you to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and it's really hard when you don't have bootstraps or they've been taken from you. And our society just isn't built to actually help that. So as much as I can, and as much as my organization can, we want to rally around the people that we're going to help, because we're going to be a property management company. So we'll have properties. Hopefully we'll have one by the end of this year. I'm not sure, but the people that live in those properties will have been recently homeless because they'll qualify for Section 8. And at that point, we want to just put a very supportive community around them so that, they just get further and further away from homelessness through relationships and further into whatever their destiny is.
That's amazing. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge your bravery and being able to overcome those types of obstacles, and then to just turn around and then want to help your community is something that's really empowering and great to hear. Some people could have had very different feelings about their experience and not feel like they want to invest more in their community after really struggling like that. So thank you for really pushing to help people who are experiencing housing loss or housing crisis. So thank you. Alyssa, would you like to go?
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Erica, for your story. And I am a former homeless youth as well. So I have shared a little of your experience. So I want to echo Charlotte's words and say that I think it's really telling of your character to be putting your heart into something like this after going through what you did. But my name's Alyssa Tursak. I work at Constellation Cat Cafe, and I am here to learn more than anything. I'm not planning on starting my own nonprofit right now, but I really appreciate the resources and knowledge that you're sharing. And that's what I got today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alyssa. And I'm really excited to hear a bit more about what you're working on at the Constellation Cat Cafe. So I'll go ahead and just dive into what our objectives are. So this quick little tutorial, I'd really like participants to feel like they've learned some organizational principles that will help them build stronger, more effective organizations. I also want participants to know where to find resources so that they can begin developing their organization and setting up the general steps needed to do the planning, the registration, and even evaluation of your organization. So we're going to be really diving into that. I also have two more objectives. I would like participants to be tasked with developing a mission, vision, and value statement to help them launch their ideas. So directly at the end of this and afterwards, if you haven't already wrote up or drafted a mission, vision, and value statement, I really want to push you to do that. And I want to welcome you to email it to me, and I will review it and provide feedback for you. And then the last objective that I really would like to focus on is I want you to begin thinking about drafting a concept note or a business plan. And for the both of you, I realize that you guys are in different stages of development. Perhaps you already have a concept note or a business plan. But if you don't, I really think it's a great and useful tool. We oftentimes are very impassioned and can stand before someone and talk about this specific organization and its mission that you're so passionate about. But sometimes people need to read about your organization. They need to have something written down. And it's particularly important when you're trying to build consensus among your volunteers or staff, because you want everybody to be able to recall that mission and vision really quickly and almost be able to repeat it word for word, so that when someone is asking them about their organization and what they're doing, they'll be able to advocate it just like the founder can. You ever hear a founder talk about their organization and then hear another staff member and hear the difference in how one's very impassioned and the other one sounds like they might be struggling to kind of relay what they know about the organization because they don't know the ins and outs. And so having a really strong conceptual document that writes out exactly what your mission statement is, your vision, your values, what programs, services, or asset you're giving to the community. We want that all written down. How much is it going to cost? Where are you going to get the resources? What money do you need to have invested into your organization to begin doing this really great work? And what have you done in the past that might get somebody excited about what you're doing and want to invest? Traditionally, we'll hear a lot, and I'll go to the next slide, about, okay, if you're doing a small business, it needs to be run this way. If you're doing a nonprofit, it needs to be run this way. And these two things are completely separate. And we really try to question that at Organizing Together, because there's not a whole lot of differences between a nonprofit and a for-profit. You're giving the community in a nonprofit setting a service that has an economic value, a social and economic capital that is intrinsic to building resilient and thriving sustainable communities. So when I talk about organizational development, I'm talking about your organizations at a nonprofit level, organizations at a small business or a corporation level. I'm talking about organizations at municipal and state and federal levels. I'm also talking about grassroots organizing, because you don't need to necessarily be official to make a really big impact in your community. So when I say organizational development, I'm talking about the practices, systems, and techniques that we take to do organizational change. Whether that's we're trying to get people to buy what we are selling, or if it's trying to get them to advocate for human rights. And a lot of the tactics are quite similar, and there's a lot to learn across organization. Not only that is when we bring in small profits, small businesses, nonprofits, and municipal governments, we can really strategize together on how to solve what challenges we have in our communities. So I want to just make sure that we review a couple more terms. So a corporation is a more complex business structure. It's usually yields more tax benefits than some of the other ways you can start a company. But there are some considerations because there are increased licensing fees and a lot of decreased personal control. So at Organizing Together, we're now a corporation because although I founded the organization and I'm the CEO, we're actually a cooperative, we're a collective. So our power is just distributed horizontally instead of vertically. And that's important to us because we want to make sure that this is a community-led, community functioning organization and not just a for-profit business. Now we have general partnerships. And so that usually is composed of 2 or more persons who are not married, but will agree to contribute money, labor, and skills to a business. So that means that each partner is obviously sharing in the profits and the losses. Not both of them don't necessarily have to be in the management of the business. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we circle back to talk about your bylaws and your articles of organization or incorporation. Does anyone have any questions so far on these definitions? No? So everybody might have heard of a limited liability company. It's usually formed by 1 or more individuals with a special written agreement. It's the easiest kind of business to start. It's usually really low investment. It's really easy for people who are offering services such as housekeeping or potentially, making jewelry or maybe a small farm. And that's usually the first step in creating a small for-profit enterprise. Sole proprietorship is usually when one individual or a married couple go in on some sort of form of business structure. And it gives them some tax incentives, but they're not really as good as a LLC or a corporation. Next is a general partnership. And this is composed of 2 or more people who are usually not married. And each person shares some part of the liability or debt, but it might not be informal. So one person might just have been the investor, another person might control all of the management, but there are definitely strategic benefits to each of these. And at the end, we'll go over some places where you can find more about each one. Does anyone have any questions about these terms? Great. So again, 501c3s are the main types of organizations that are charitable. So you can, this does include religious, educational, scientific, and literary organizations. Any donations over $250 are tax deductible. A lot of people don't know that, but if you're going to be donating to a charity, if it's under $250, it's actually not tax deductible. And you don't actually, as a nonprofit, need to be registered with the IRS or have an incorporated 501c3 unless you're paying employees or paying yourself, or you are going to receive more than $50,000 in funds. But if you're not registered at that time and someone does donate to you $1,000, they can't have that as a tax write-off unless you have that tax identification ID number. Sometimes people are confused and they're not sure of the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c4. Underneath a 501c3, you're not allowed to endorse or be a part of any type of political campaigning. So that's why they have 501c4s, which are specifically for advocacy and supporting politicians running for office. So you'll see groups of organizations that advocate for public policy changes by backing specific electoral representatives. And they're separate. And those are reviewed by the IRS in a completely different way. They have a lot more audits involved, and they have a lot more stricter regulations. Now, you might have heard of the term foundations. So there are multiple different types of foundations. Some of them are 501c3s, some of them aren't, but there are roughly 103,000 foundations around the United States. And they can be private or they can be public. The majority of them are private. And when you're approaching foundations, either they will request solicitations or it will be by invitation only. And so there's a lot of different tactics that can be used to going after foundation grants. But one recommendation I always give is, on average, grants only comprise of 12% of nonprofit budgets across the United States. So you're really going to want to invest in alternative forms of revenue, whether it's running a store or providing a service, or having different types of corporate sponsorship structures. There's really a lot you can do. There's many lists on the internet about different fundraising strategies, but just know that those strategies are going to comprise of the most amount of revenue for a nonprofit. Does anyone have any questions about understanding these terms? No? All right. Well, does anybody have any questions or any clarifications so far? No? All right.
Not yet, but soon.
Okay. So here are some questions that I have that I want to pose to you and to everyone else watching. I want to know what type of organization would best suit the problem you're trying to solve. Would it be a nonprofit or would it be a for-profit? And then I want to know what types of resources are available to you in building this. What have you used before? And then I would like to know, who are your target audiences and what are the unique messages that you're using to reach them? I want to know who your competitors or prospective partners are. I want to know what research needs to be conducted to ensure that your mission and vision is unique. Because we're not trying to remake the wheel. There are plenty of organizations already doing amazing things in the community. And instead of building your own organization, why wouldn't you just go and work for them? So all of these questions should be answered before even moving forward with a formal application for an organization or building the concept note. These are very important questions. I'm not going to pose them to you right now, but I just want you to think a little bit more about them as we move forward, because these are really important, and every organization should know how to answer them, and everyone in your organization should know how to answer them. Does anybody have any questions about what I've just posed to you? All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about diving into those questions a little bit and something that we call an environmental analysis. Now, before we do anything, the first step of understanding a problem is to understand who, what, when, and where. So whether it's a product that you're selling to someone or a service that you're giving to the community, who is it helping? Who is the one implementing it? what's actually happening, who is it happening to, when does it happen, where does it happen? All of these should be answered. And if you're going to be an organization that focuses strictly on helping people or providing a service, is it at the local? Is it at the state? Is it at the national level? And so for each of those, you should be thinking, okay, who are the competitors or your partners at the local level, at the state level, and then again at the national level? Because the goal is, if you do provide a unique service or good to your community and you're looking to scale, you would want to know who your competitors or partners are in that process, so that when you move to build capacity and scale to the next level, you know a straight pathway and who to contact and who to study. So I want to know the demographic statistics of your stakeholders. Who's buying your product? Who's benefiting from your service? What do they look like now? What does the community look like now? But what might it look like in the future? How is it going to change? Are there predicting trends that impact your specialty? So for me, I started a nonprofit in Boston, Massachusetts called Refugees Welcome Network. And we specifically have focused on strengthening organizational capacity for immigrant service providers across the state. And one thing we did not interpret at that time was the election of Donald Trump, which definitely impacted the migrant community, particularly refugees and asylum seekers who are no longer allowed to enter the country. And we didn't do well enough planning ahead of time to say, what if that occurred? So I really want to push everyone, when they're thinking about and strategizing to build an organization, to really think about what these trends and patterns are. Another aspect is that you're going to want to know what other organizations are doing, right? Like, we don't do things in a vacuum. If there's a problem in the community, we should be asking ourselves, why hasn't this been solved before? And if there are people trying to solve the problem or provide a similar good or service, why would I want to start another organization? How am I not remaking the wheel? How is this unique compared to all the other partners and competitors around us? And then how can we fit a gap in their service or goods provision? And that's where we find our niche. And that's where we find our partners. The next part is to make sure that you always interview your stakeholders. It doesn't matter if you are selling a good, you should be interviewing prospective people who are going to be buying your product and asking them, how do you like this? Does it taste good? Does it look good? Does it smell good? If you haven't did any interviews with them, that's going to be a serious problem when you go to get investors, because they'll want to say, okay, but what do your prospective clients or customers say about your product? It's the same thing for a nonprofit organization. And in fact, I would say it's even more important, because usually in a nonprofit setting, the people that we're trying to help are marginalized and historically exploited individuals. So they're going to be needing to be active participants in the building of your organization. And so there should be interviews with stakeholders and community leaders that occur way before you start writing a concept note, before you register, before you start looking for people to invest or donate to your organization. And it's super important that you bring lots of people into the development of your organization. And this is really important because, A, you don't want to build an organization that evolves around you. When you do that, what it does is it creates insecurity within your organization. So if you have issues delegating, if you have issues trusting the people around you, then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of be parental, and you're going to stop them from helping them grow your organization. And then you're also going to get run down and sick, and then no one's going to know how to do your job at the end of the day, and the organization crumbles. Less than 1 out of every 10 nonprofits make it to year 4. And that's huge. And that's because usually it's based around a community leader and not leadership. And usually what that means is when you're building an organization that's based off of others outside of yourself, you're going to have a board. And this board is going to act as your advisors. And you can have a board for a for-profit company, you can have a board for a nonprofit, with the goal of finding individuals that are going to connect you with the resources that you need. So for instance, if you are running an organization that provides housing to at-risk populations, you're going to want someone on your board that's maybe from the state that is in housing. Go after someone who works for the state. I would go after somebody who maybe works for the municipal government. I would have somebody from a college or an education system so they can understand how youth are dealing with these issues. I would have somebody who works with elderly populations so that you can get the perspective of having somebody who knows a lot about the hardships of older individuals. You're going to also want somebody who is, either has overcame their housing crisis or someone actively in crisis to also be an advisor to you, because their perspectives matter. And it's not going to matter what is right, what isn't right, what you think, if your stakeholders aren't buying what you're selling. And so that's a huge thing that I always tell our clients is you have to surround yourself with the people who have the connections to the resources and the information that you're going to need. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? So have either of you completed your mission and vision statements?
I'm always a little kind of confused about which is which and what is what, but I have one or the other.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the way that I describe it. I think, Alyssa, the Cat Cafe has their mission and vision statement, right?
Hi, we're actually working on getting it finalized. We have like a loose way we describe it, but the official statement is still coming together.
Fantastic. So this will be beneficial to the both of you, hopefully. So a vision statement really is 2 to 3 sentences tops, where a mission statement's 1 sentence. A vision statement, the way that I usually describe it to my clients and my students, is the world in which you want to see. Right? So at the end of the day, in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, when you've solved whatever problem that is you're solving, whatever problem your product solves. So let's say if your product is skincare, I would say I envision a world in which people no longer have skin acne. And that my company is able to provide the world with these medications that are going to help them. So that's in a world everyone would have access to this, and it's the larger vision. For Refugees Welcome as a nonprofit, our vision statement was a world in which migrants no longer had to live in fear of not being able to find the resources or not being welcomed into their community, because that's the world in which we were trying to build. So you should really think long about what is, the long-term vision. For a mission statement, and this is the one that always gets everyone because it's usually 1 sentence. It's 1 sentence. And so it really says everything about your organization. And I know that's really intimidating and hard. But really what it does is it just tries to explain what your organization does and then what is it trying to achieve. And so mission statements are usually, like I said, much shorter. You can get away with a 2-sentence mission statement sometimes, but I usually advise if you can get it to 1 sentence, that everybody can practice it, and then you guys could all repeat the same phrase together so that your vision and your mission are not lost when someone's trying to describe your organization. So for organizing together, ours is quite long, and it is 2 sentences. It's organizing together is a hyper-local organizational development and research collective consisting of technical experts, research scientists, and practitioners in an array of different fields. We use both qualitative and quantitative methods to help scale organizations and build stronger, more resilient communities. So it's who we are and what we do and how we do it. So those are some good questions to be posed, and then working with a team of your board or some volunteers just to get you thinking out loud and brainstorming about how you can formulate those sentences. But they're going to be really important. The final concept, and sometimes the mission statement and value proposition is used interchangeably. But a lot of times you're going to hear these terms separate because, again, they're always trying to silo small businesses and nonprofits, but I think that there's something to learn. So a value proposition explains how your product or service solves the problem, and it's quantified in value, and it provides like very specific benefits. You tell the ideal customer why they should buy from you and not from the competition. And so here, a nonprofit value proposition would focus on that gap that I was telling you about, that place where all these other organizations have been trying to solve this problem, but you did the research, you know that this specific method and service is being used in a different city, and you want to adopt that method because it's worked in similar geographic and demographic constraints, and it's different from all the other organizations around you. So I think that it's always great to also include some sort of value proposition along with your vision and your mission statements to tell your stakeholders why that you should be around to be helping them and providing them that product or service. Does anyone have any questions? Was it helpful?
I figured out that we have a mission statement. That's what we have.
Good. And then please feel free, Erica, to email it to me if you want me to review it, and we can have a chat about it and schedule like a 30-minute conversation. Same with you, Alyssa, if you guys need anybody to review the language or add, anything to it, please let me know and we'd be happy to review it for you. So, activity time. I would like you to try to tell me what your mission statement is.
Your market set, go. Jubilee is a network that connects disadvantaged community members in the greater Lansing area with effective support and transformative opportunities.
I love that. That is great. That's perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. And now we just have to figure out what is that long-term vision. And it could be simply to end homelessness in Lansing. But it's good to be as specific as possible. If you're only going to focus on one region, it should be stated. And a lot of times people try to make things really broad because they're like, we want to scale, we want to do all these things. But I would like to reframe that as, wouldn't you rather accomplish your goal in your local community first before you really start thinking about that? And so keeping your mission and your vision very focused is actually, if in a nonprofit setting, will really, really spark the interest of foundations because they're interested in really localized development instead of these one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter methods that usually get applied by national organizations in communities who don't agree with or want those specific support methods. So I think that was really great. Alyssa, do you want to try?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny because I actually have a draft. We're working on this right now, but I have a draft. It's a little longer than your recommendation, so I'll have to parse it down. But Constellation Cat Cafe's mission is to create a safe environment for all people to discover the joy of pet ownership through education, inclusive events, and outreach. And then there's like 2 more sentences, but I'm not going to read those because they're still a work in progress. But
I think that was great. That's a perfect 1-sentence mission statement.
Thank you.
Really good. So I'm really happy that I think that you should be confident in yourself and knowing that you're doing a really good job on making sure that you narrow down so that when you're talking about your organization, it's not really vague and wide in scope. So good job. Before we kind of open it up to any final questions in which you can ask me anything about any topic, I just wanted to let you know that the Small Business Development Center is a national federal funded organization that can help you build your small business. They have a lot of documentation and also offer workshops and courses. Here locally in Michigan and in Lansing area, we do have a small business resource guide that can point you to all the different resources, whether you be nonprofit or for-profit. There's also the Lansing Area Economic Partnership that provides a lot of funding opportunities and different types of networking opportunities. And then we also have the OT Network, which is our online learning management system for OT. And on there, there's a course called Quick Guide to Starting Organizations. And it will actually provide you with templates for the articles of incorporation and the articles of all your bylaws, and then a board of directors handbook is also in a course for board of directors. So please, I encourage you to go on and make a profile and download all that information to get ready and get started. I did just want to say that the average cost of starting a nonprofit really depends on how much money you think you're going to bring in within your first 3 years. If it's not going to be more than $50,000 in any given fiscal year, then you can go ahead and apply for their EASY form, which is really simple. It's an online application and it's not very expensive. I think it's like $60. And then you also apply to your local county and your city as an organization, which sometimes there's some fees involved depending on where you live. For businesses, it's going to depend on what type of business you're looking to go ahead and start. If it's an LLC, it's again only like $50 to start your LLC. You can easily find ways to create stores using WooCommerce and Printify. You can get technical website support on Wix or WordPress. They're fairly simple to learn. So we're always here as a guide at OT to help you. We provide 30-minute consultations for anybody in the community here in Lansing and Michigan, but also in our hub in Boston. So please let us know if we can help you in any way. We're a community-based organization. Does anyone have any specific questions or things that are really kind of being an ache or a headache to you in starting an organization that I can help you with right now?
Say the one question I'm wondering, something I'm wondering about is, because we have filed the articles of incorporation with the state and got that back. So it's an official thing and not something, just something Erica talks about anymore. And
congratulations.
Thank you. So, and we did have to have like 4 incorporators with that. And I'm not sure that, that they're all like necessarily committed to the project. So I'm wondering when, I don't know the best way to phrase this, but I don't want board members that aren't committed and or willing to make an effort. And I also don't want to let go of people too soon. So I guess the question is like, when am I committed to board members when it comes to like, is it like when I file for the 501c3 or how does that work?
Yeah, so they'll always ask for 4 trustees. And these aren't necessarily your board members. These trustees are called trustees because they're those that are being entrusted with a public organization, because a nonprofit has no owner except for the public. And so what you're saying by being a trustee on these documents is that the outcome of the organization and the money that's going to be raised is going to go back to the public, and you will make sure that that happens. That does not necessarily mean that those people have to be on your board. I would definitely say that they should have some interactions and contribute in some way. And I would update that documentation every fiscal year, just to make sure that you have an updated list of trustees. But in your bylaws, you can really set up your organization to do kind of anything. So for the way that I usually advise my clients in building a board of directors is that it's going to be a really fluid process for a while. And what I mean by that is you're going to go through consecutive rounds of hiring, because you're going to find people who are like, ooh, this is exciting. I want to like dive right in. And then they're like gone in a month or 2 months because they had something come up. They had financial or family obligations, and that they're obviously sad that they can't participate. It's nobody's fault. But you do need people in those roles who are going to participate and really contribute to your organization. So I usually separate board members from advisors. And so if someone wants to start as a board member and then they kind of trail off, I say, you know, your contributions really mean a lot to us and we don't want to see you go. But we really need somebody who's going to come every month to the board meetings and contribute in the ways that are outlined in the board of directors handbook. Would it be okay if we moved you to an advisory role where you can come in just during the strategic planning once a year, or drop into any of our meetings whenever you're available? But I'm going to go ahead and allow someone else to take that space who can contribute at this time. If you'd like to come and contribute more and you'd like to be reinstated as a full-time board member, that's also an option. It's really up to you. And that's why like what you write in your bylaws and in your board of directors handbook is going to be really, really important to the long-term success of your organization. Because if you set things up and it does not allow you that flexibility of bringing in board members for the first 4 years on an ad hoc basis, and you have to have an interviewing process for every new board member, and every board member needs to be approved, that's going to take forever. And more than likely, by the time you get started, you're already going to start crashing because you're already going to have board members leaving. Because they want to be entertained. This is a volunteer position. They want to be made to feel good about what they're doing. And so they need to be constantly engaged. Whereas if you're spending all the time hiring, recruiting, interviewing, and that's all the board member is doing is just consistently interviewing for new board members, then when are you actually getting work done? Was that helpful to your question? Do you feel like I answered it?
Yeah, it sounds like in the bylaws is how we'll determine actually who and when they start as their specific role and responsibility as a board member. And until then, it's just like a group of advisors, like you said.
Exactly. And I have to say this legally, that everyone should go consult a lawyer, a legal expert, who specializes in kind of organizational development, because I'm not a lawyer. But there is Reed Felsing, which is our OT affiliated lawyer who does pro bono work out of the Fledge Foundation for nonprofits who need someone to look over their bylaws. You can contact him at Reed Felsing. You just Google his name and his practice will come up, and reach out and just say that you are a nonprofit who is working through the Fledge Foundation. Obviously, probably let Jerry Norris know that you're doing that, but he knows that Reed is offering pro bono work through the foundation.
Okay.
So it's always good to get a bunch of people to look over it who have had development background and who've seen a lot of different bylaws. And there's various different structures. If you just Google bylaw templates, you'll find 100, and you can go through them and kind of figure out what works for you and what doesn't. and kind of get feedback from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm. Alyssa, did you have any questions that were specific to the Cat Cafe?
I don't necessarily have a question right now, but I did just want to give a testimonial, if I could, about I used the course on OT and was able to make a Board of Directors handbook using the resources that you had and the templates, and it was just so easy to use and very well done. And so thank you so much for offering that to the community.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm really happy that it's helpful. And I am overjoyed anytime I hear somebody has created an organization based off of either the materials that we helped produce, the classes that we're working on, or just by working with us. It really is great. So thank you so much. If you don't have any further questions, I'll just kind of do the closing. Anything else, Erica? Please don't be shy. If you have any other questions, I can help you with.
I think that's all for today.
Okay, great. Well, I will be sending out a copy of the presentation for you. In the presentation on the last slide is a quick little survey that you can fill out, just letting us know how we're doing and how we can be better, and potentially classes that you would like in the future. We're definitely open to hearing the community's opinion. We'd like to create a course catalog built off of your guys' needs. I also, if you haven't already, obviously both you, Alyssa and Erica, are on our app. But for you guys watching on Facebook and on YouTube, if you would like to join the network, it's at apporganizedtogether.network. And on there, we have all different types of courses. And we also are home to the Michigan Overdose Data to Action community that's specifically focused on preventing overdoses and substance misuse here in Michigan. And you can join that community and keep up to date about all of the state-of-the-art research and tactical methods that are being used to prevent and reduce harm. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm really happy that you were here to participate, and I hope to see you at our next class.
Okie dokie.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.